Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today. Hope everybody watching had a terrific Memorial Day weekend. Lindsay, how was yours?
It was good. I just chillaxed with the family, had a nice time. What about you?
Same. I actually didn't do a whole lot. I was just here, didn't go out of town, and yeah, it was pretty chill weekend. I played more video games than I care to admit.
We're gonna have to talk about video games
It was
later.
a little too cold outside for it was nice out, but
We're looking for 80 degrees and plus, right?
That's what we want.
That's what we want. It's
Did
coming
finally
soon.
make it to my rooftop pool for the first time this season last night. So that was
Okay, you
nice.
didn't tell me you had a rooftop pool, so.
Oh yeah?
Well, listen.
You're welcome
besides,
anytime.
I was about to say, besides the rooftop pool, what's on your radar?
Let's get to it. Well, is the media actually paying too much attention to former President Joe Biden's advanced age and cognitive decline and the failure of mainstream journalism to uncover this story? I mean, the answer to that is obviously no. It's laughable, really. But the subject is front page news right now because the mainstream media's complicity in efforts by Biden's inner circle to suppress the truth from the public for weeks and months and maybe even years. They tried to pull a fast one on the American people and they got caught. Now some journalists are finally reluctantly discussing what was really going on, like Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, authors of the new book Original Sin, which I started reading over the weekend, which unmasked the conspiracy to keep Biden's cognitive decline a secret from the American people. But one commentator at MSNBC thinks what we should really be talking about is the advanced age and the health of President Donald Trump. Oh, seriously, in a recent interview with Thompson, the co-author of Original Sin, Ayman Mohyeldin said that he thinks there's a double standard at play, that there's too much coverage of Biden's health and age compared with Trump. I'm not kidding you. He actually asked Thompson why Thompson wasn't covering that story more aggressively. Watch this.
If you take the lessons learned from the book, both about where the country is on having elder presidents and, more importantly, where the media is there a double standard in which, in a way, the way the media covered Joe Biden's health versus Donald Trump's health during the campaign? And certainly now, is there a double standard with the way we are covering it? I mean, are you out there also investigating and reporting about Trump's health in the same rigor that you did this book?
Thompson responds that he would be happy to look into that subject in the future, but he's a little busy with the Biden book right now. Look, if there was some kind of double standard here, if Trump's age and health and mental state were undercovered by the media, well, yeah, that would be a fair point. But the double standard worked the other way. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the situation. The mainstream media covers Trump's health from a skeptical perspective with great frequency. The media all the time proclaims Trump's statements are characteristic of some kind of mental decline. They comment on his age, they imply he's losing energy and stamina, that his mind doesn't work. They've been saying this for years. Liberal media and Democratic legislators even talked of invoking the 25th Amendment, a provision for removing the president due to health reasons. Representative Zoe Lofgren, a Democrat, introduced a resolution calling on psychiatric professionals to interview Trump and judge his ongoing fitness for office. And she introduced that resolution, all the way back in 2017. That's how long this has been top of mind for Democrats. Here's the key difference between Trump's health and Biden's health. We, the American people, get lots of exposure to Trump, and thus we can judge for ourselves. Biden, on the other hand, was hidden from us. This is quite an important distinction. Trump does interview after interview. He goes on 3-hour-long podcasts. He sits down for interviews with both friendly conservative media and also hostile liberal media. He spontaneously takes questions from the press at events, and so on. Biden, on the other hand, has done fewer press events than any other president in recent memory. He was deliberately kept at arm's length in order to mask his cognitive decline. In the 2020 election, his team used the excuse that the COVID-19 pandemic necessitated a different kind of campaign, and so they largely got away with it. Not so in 2024. Now, it's true that Trump is old, and by the end of his term, he'll be older than Biden is now. The media should continue to cover the implications of that, but I'm sorry. That's not a double standard here. Rather, let me rephrase that. The standard is different because the circumstance is different. Biden was cognitively impaired in an alarming and unprecedented and noticeable way. The American people knew it, Democratic officials hid it, and mainstream media looked the other way. And as I said, I've just started getting into the Tapper-Thompson book. I think it's pretty good, by the way. I recommend people, even if they think they know this whole story, should check it out. Lot of fascinating detail on the Biden family and how his inner circle worked to protect him in a very, not even a cult-like way, it's almost like more of a mob-style way. And also it just becomes clearer and clearer that the COVID pandemic was a gift to the Biden campaign because it allowed them to have an excuse to not do the vigorous public-facing kind of campaign that would have been expected under other circumstances, and that really worked to his favor. But you can't tell me that the media doesn't ask questions about Trump's health. We've heard these from the start, that he's deranged and thus he shouldn't be able to serve as president. That's what the media has said. That I've seen CNN segments about invoking the 25th Amendment against Trump, 8 years ago.
Listen, Biden's team is not lining my pockets. I'm not here to be in defense of Biden. I'm all for younger, sharper minds. I want to tell you that Trump is not that, right? He is the face of instability and knee-jerk reactions. He reacts off emotions often, saying stuff out loud sporadically, reposting AI images that are unreal. That's something that your grandpa would do that doesn't know how to use social media. Might be a little bit, okay, grandpa's losing it, right? So I think the whole world wanted somebody younger and fresh in office. There were a lot of studies and polls that showed that the American public would have preferred two different candidates be running against each other for last year's election. But I do think that it's important to not take your foot off the gas, right? If you correct a problem, then we need to make sure that we correct it for good. And so the problem was that we didn't cover Biden's age enough. I hear that argument and receive it. But Trump will be 83, close to 83 by the end of his term. And he is not the poster child for stability. And I think that has to be recognized because we brush it off as brash or that's just Trump. And I think that some of that is irrational and getting older and not having any couth. And some things that he does are falling in line with people that are getting older that you really can't reel in. And we all have experienced that with elder people that we come across, are friends with, but they're not running our country.
I just don't see much evidence that it's fine, if you don't agree with Trump, to characterize him as unstable or the policies unstable or the rhetoric unstable. That's fine if that's your view. I certainly don't like every single thing Trump does or says. I just don't see that that's having to do with some kind of age-related decline or cognitive decline. I think that is just who he is. So it's similar to what he's said for 8-10 years.
No, there's examples. Like, so he was on News Nation, our sister station. He was on News Nation, and Stephen A. Smith asked him about his attack on Harvard. And he starts responding about how black people support him and Harvard. And it had nothing to do with the answer and the question that Stephen A. Smith asked. And so that is the same thing that when we listen to these Biden tapes, his answers had nothing to do with...
I hate to break it to you, but if you ask politicians tough questions, they pivot to something else.
Oh,
I don't know that that's...
You're making excuses for him.
I'm just saying it's not age. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying I don't think it's related to age or decline. Sure, he doesn't directly answer questions he doesn't want to answer, nor does any other political figure at any time. You ask them questions at those debate stages, they just pivot to attacking someone else or what they want to answer.
In an interview, then you criticize her in a 60 Minutes interview as taking too long and not answering a question. Maybe not cognitive decline, but you just say she's not a good...
I don't think Kamala Harris is, to be clear, experiencing any kind of cognitive decline.
But if Trump dodges the question and doesn't even take a breath but just answers the wrong question, that's not a little bit... something that's questionable to be looked at.
Look, he is old, and you're right that people in both parties worried that about these candidates and wanted different candidates. You are right about that. There were poll findings that America wanted two different candidates. But the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is the Republicans held competitive primaries. There were other candidates. There was Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Mike Pence, Chris Christie, others. And the Republican voters said, no, Trump, please. And so we ran that experiment. On the Democratic side, you didn't do that. Biden said, no, I'm running, and if anyone else tries to run, we'll have them killed. He didn't literally say that, but that was the attitude of his surrogates on cable news. And so there was no system, and so was him, and then this happened.
Well, Republicans got what they wanted. They got Trump in office, so we'll just watch that cognitive.
And then soon we'll have this is Trump's last election, despite the whole third-term stuff, and then
we'll see what happens.
We will have a new apprentice, one far younger and more powerful.
Hopefully, unless it's Bernie Sanders. Next up, President Trump says that Putin has gone crazy. We'll dive into that next.